A very warm welcome to you all. Welcome to Designing Cities for All,
the 2-year activity program of Pakhuis de Zwijger,
in which we take a deep dive into designing products,
places and systems for all.
At every level, we can see certain communities being marginalized, being taken advantage of, and it's all part of the design.
When you're neurodiverse, you're in a world that isn't designed for you.
We're not the only species on the planet. The city needs to be also a city for the other species.
And we need to do something because the old structures in which we worked don't work.
Things won't change just if we just let things happen.
Instead of saying, what can we do to mitigate the impacts? We need to start asking ourselves, what is causing that?
Design is political. That we need to design processes, that we are all different, but there are things that unite us.
These are the things that need to be on the table, that need to be recovered in order to redesign the society.
Everything around us was once designed and can therefore be redesigned.
How do we teach design in a way where students can be really critical of the systems of power that have informed and dominated design?
Inclusion happens by design, or not at all.
I think it's always some kind of a co-creation process, and you have to make very little steps and then figure out together what works and what doesn't.
It takes as much time to do something good as it takes time to do something bad.
All design tells a story.
But there's also a bit of a need to not just write ourselves into the past, but also kind of write ourselves into the future.
I invite you so much to join my path of liberation, and I'm hopefully being welcomed by your path of liberation.
We have to heal collectively. We have to help each other understand some of these constructs that actually divide us.
Not fitting in was a blessing, or I would have turned out just like you.
Hello, welcome to you all from Pakhuis de Zwijger. Thank you for being here tonight. The video that you just watched showed the wrap-up of the first 2 years of Designing Cities for All, in which we take a deep dive into designing products, places, and systems for all. Designing Cities for All started in 2021. At first, it was a 2 years activity and research program. And in 2023, we started with a new theme, regenerative design, and then we want to explore the concept of regeneration. So this will be done with 6 fellows, one of whom is sitting next to me, Roberto, our previous fellow, and with a lot of researchers, designers, artists, students, and experts, other experts in different fields. Our aim is to learn more about how we can redesign the world in a way that recovers and strengthens the systems in it so that people and everything beyond humans, so we also focus on non-human beings, that can bloom. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone here, and also people watching us online. My name is Faiza Mohammadi, and I'm a member of Designing Cities for All team, but tonight I'm also wearing the hat of moderator. So today we have a very special event at Pakhuis de Zwijger, which is the launch of the book, Manifesto for the Just City, Volume 3, which we will see the cover soon on the screens. And it's an initiative from TU Delft in partnership with some other institutions. So we had the launch of the second volume last year here as well, and we are really excited to have also the launch of third volume here. And we are going to take a deep dive into discussing urban justice, the concept of urban justice. And of course, we are having a lot of presentations of the manifestos by the students who contributed to write the manifestos. And some of them are here gladly with us in the studio, and some of them are joining online. Because there are a lot of students from all around the world, more than 300 students from 63 countries. Am I right? Right? So let's have a round of applause for this great. contribution, which is like a kind of collective effort from all teachers and then students. And then we will hear more that actually the Manifesto for the Just City now is being used as exercise in classes. So this is so nice. But A Manifesto for the Just City is not only a book, but now it's also like a workshop. It's more like an online course. You can see the poster here and probably on the screen. So it's a 4 online session. It's going to be on October 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. And the good news that you still have time to register. So don't miss the opportunity. And I also want to welcome our guests. First of all, we have brilliant people and minds behind the Manifesto for the Just City. Now, I will just introduce them quickly. Roberto Rocco and Caroline Newton, the Associate Professors of Spatial Planning and Strategy at Department of Urbanism at TU Delft. A round of warm applause to them, for them. A bit louder, that people understand you more. Thank you. And of course, we have Juliana Gonçalves. I checked all the pronunciation. That is, of course, Associate Professor of, Assistant Professor of Spatial Planning and Strategy at Department of Urbanism at TU Delft and one of the main contributors. And we also have a special guest all the way from South Africa, Rudolf Perold. And he is joining as also one of the main contributors and teachers. That the person that I referred to as the person who is using these materials in his classes is actually Rudolf. He's an architect, an urban geographer, and also an educator. Hello, Rudolf. Thank you so much for being us tonight. I guess we don't have him still on this screen, but you can see him on the screen behind. And we will come back to you later. For now, thank you so much for joining. Apart from the students, from the teachers, we also have a lot of students and participants here with us in the studio. So I do also want to welcome all of you here, all the way from Delft, Hafen City. It's the name of the city also, right? Okay, Hafen City and Hamburg, right? Yeah, Hamburg. Yeah, actually Hamburg, and also Amstelveen. Some friends joined from Amstelveen, which is not very far, but still. And of course, you people who are watching us online, thank you so much for being with us here tonight. And we want to include everyone in the conversation. So if you have a question here during the program, please just save your question. One of my colleagues will come to you with a mic, and then you can pose your question to either of the speakers that you want or just generally. And if you're watching us online, you can go to menti.com and insert the code 1688-9812. I'm going to repeat it again, 1688-9812. And then, of course, we can have a good conversation together with you. So no time to lose. I will go to our first speakers and also have a bit of introduction with Roberto and Caroline. So let's go back to the beginning, 2021. Can you tell us the story behind A Manifesto for the Just City and how it started?
Okay, well, it was a moment of the pandemic. I don't know if you still remember, some of us tend to already forget, but so we were all behind our computers and we were sort of missing the discussions, the debates. And so we thought, okay, what kind of exercise or what kind of activity can we organize to have a discussion, have a debate, especially so everybody was talking, how can we do it better after the pandemic? And well, for me, and I'm sure for Roberto as well, thinking about justice is an element that needs to be in that conversation. And if I'm correct, Roberto, please correct me if I'm wrong, there was also the urban campaign of UN Habitat that was calling for activities. And we thought together with our colleagues like Anya, Igor, exactly, Luz, we thought it would be nice to have this kind of online discussion. And it started as a very small idea, but yeah.
It turned out to be very great.
Something very big, yeah.
Do you want to add something to the beginning of the story?
No, I just want to acknowledge the role of UN Habitat in the beginning, because we actually designed the workshop more or less for that activity. But then we went away and started to grow with the activity.
Yeah, and founding the Center for Just City was part of that going beyond, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
I think it's one of the things that we are super proud of. When I arrived at TU Delft, that was kind of my... I got a fellowship from the Van Eesteren Stichting, and I wanted to really work on the question of spatial justice. And meeting Roberto was just fantastic, because Roberto was also working on these questions of spatial justice, of thinking about what is a just city, and bringing these important notions and things into a design context, an urban planning context. So after these kind of small steps and small collaborations, we now established this center, and I think it's just amazing.
Yeah, and the very best part about this book is that it's like, as I said, a collective effort from like a lot of different teachers. Do you also want to say something about that like a lot of different teachers from all around the world are contributing?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all the people who have participated in the manifesto. As you said yourself, this edition had more than 300 students from 63 universities. In the workshop itself, there are people from 126 universities. Not all of them submit manifestos, which is understandable. But it's really a collective effort. So many people working together. And apart from our guests tonight, there are other teachers also using it as a class material, and I think it's super nice that people do that, and this gives us the opportunity to meet new people as well, which is amazing.
Because from the very beginning, I guess it was not the aim, or it was not the plan to publish something that will be used like as a class exercise or something like that. It was more just like about collecting manifestos. Or it was like...
No, yes, and especially sharing ideas and kind of exchanging ideas and talking with people who have similar interests. I think that is so super nice about the fact that it grows, that you realize that you're not the only crazy person who thinks that justice is important, but that there are people all over the world that think it's important, and that you can join forces and make your ideas heard.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add that when she says all over the world, it's really impressive, the range of... So people from Bangladesh are joining, people from Australia, people from Canada. Iran. Oh, yeah, it's big in Iran, by the way. And it's just heartwarming to see so many people together.
Yeah, it is indeed really beautiful to get all of these perspectives together. What did you learn from the past publications, and how are the insights incorporated in this new book?
Oh, we were discussing this question, actually, and we are not so sure what we learned from one edition to the other. But what did happen is that our resolve and our certainty about why we do this manifesto became clearer. We do this exercise to fight the prevailing this idea that we have to give up on politics and give up on visions for the future. We think that there is a general cynicism towards politics nowadays and towards collective visions. And we want to do this collective visioning with all our friends as a way to combat that feeling and that combat... Because one of the core ideas of the manifesto is that hope, the practice of hope, is very powerful. And we should never give up on this idea of the just city. We will never get there, but we have to be on the path of the just city.
Yeah, to keep the hope. Thank you so much. I want to go to Juliana. who has a very diverse background. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your interesting journey, and also how did you get involved in A Manifesto for the Just City?
Yeah, sure. My journey started as an engineer. My first student job was developing new materials in the lab, like full white clothes, masks, glasses, and everything. And here I am, together with Roberto and Caroline, in this beautiful initiative of the Manifesto. It's hard for me to explain how I ended up here, but I think to me, when I started my education, I was designing these engineering systems, and I always had this thing that bothered me, like why am I doing it? And I think in the end, I want to do it for a more just society, a more just city. And that brought me all the way here. And like Caroline said, that she was very happy to meet Roberto. I shared the same feeling when I met Roberto and Caroline as co-workers when I started my new job last year. To me, it was like finding my partners in crime, people that believe in spatial justice in the just city. And I'm very happy to be here now.
Nice. We are very happy also that you all three that are happy to meet each other are here together. I want to ask a question of why do you think a manifesto is important, or why do you think a manifesto is a better format than, like, let's say, an essay? Because it's something that quoted from you in the book, that manifestos are important, specifically in the context of a just city. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, for me, it's really two reasons. The first one is that we are seeing urban inequality is increasing, and they will become deeper with climate change and climate impacts. So for a very practical reason, I think we need a call for the just city. And the form of the manifesto, I appreciate it because you put your ideas on paper, and that's very concrete. It doesn't mean that you cannot change your ideas. This is coming from someone who was an engineer and then became a spatial planner. So you can change. It's not definitive. But once you put them on paper, you really have something to act upon. And I think that's very valuable.
True. That's really fair. Thank you so much. I want to go to our online Zoom speaker, Rudolf. Thank you so much again for being with us tonight. Do you want to start by sharing a little bit of your background and your role as an educator, what you teach, and as an urban geographer? We don't hear you. Are you unmuted, or it's...
Muted?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Perfect.
Great. I teach at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology in Cape Town. And at the time when I became aware of the manifesto through Carolyn's LinkedIn, we were busy developing a new course on an introduction to urbanism for our architectural technology students. So the manifesto worked really, really well as an exercise, almost an icebreaker exercise, the first time we did it, to introduce the students to a vast array of issues to do with urbanism. And the manifesto format, to carry on what you discussed with Juliana, I think the manifesto format, rather than something that picks up symptoms of urban problems, but more something that is hopeful and looks towards positive action, was something that the students really engaged with quite well.
Yeah, thank you. And as you're like on a daily basis engaged in different areas of urban studies as a teacher, educator, how did the manifesto add new perspectives or new values to urban studies, in your opinion?
I think in the fact that it is an international exercise where our students had the opportunity to do two things at the same time while they're engaging with issues that is relevant to Cape Town and our specific context. Through the weekly seminars, they were also exposed to different themes as it manifests in specific contexts across the world. So I think that being able to zoom in into your context and then zoom out to a completely different context, different topic than what you were looking at. And then the next week come back and look at your own context again. It was a really a kind of a mind-bending exercise for the students in terms of flexible thinking, looking at specific themes in different contexts.
Yeah, thank you so much for also mentioning the term context a lot. I always keep saying that context matters, and I guess we'll come back to that again later. But thank you so much to all of you for the introduction. I guess now it's a good time to go to the presentation by the Manifesto contributors / the students. So please give a big round of applause to Divya Agrawal and Feike Smith-House.
Hello and welcome everybody to our presentation of our manifesto for a just urban. Our fellow students came from all over the world. We're with a group of 9, and they came from India to Germany, China, Syria, Croatia, and here the Netherlands. And with such a big group, we had that you can't really focus on one city, but also not just on the city. What supports a just city is all the surrounding infrastructure and urban spaces that provide resources and infrastructure. So therefore, we want to create an abstraction of these spaces. So everybody also outside of the university can also engage with these spaces, conceptualize them to kind of find what it is that these justice means in these spaces outside of the city.
So when we came up with the formation of the just urban, we realized that the just urban is not seen in isolation, but it drags in what surrounds it. So we speak of the urban proper, which ranges from the smallest house in the Netherlands to the largest metropolis in the world. And this becomes the ground that encompasses most of the urban form. The extraction urban that results from one country to the other, which forms a very large area of land which is outside the urban proper, but becomes a source for extracting resources, where sometimes even some countries extract the sources of another country by destabilizing its economy and the country itself. But here we see the brown coal fields in Germany and the Tata Steel plants in the Netherlands. The infrastructure urban, which connects people but sometimes runs through the neighborhood, as we see in Mumbai, and also a lone path in the fields, which fragments the wilderness. The temporary urban, which offers an alternative way of living to people outside the urban proper, which was used by most of our ancestors in the previous days, but also some forms like here in Kyrgyzstan, where people still live in these temporary urban conditions. The to be urban lets us go of the urge to map each and every millimeter or meter on the urban plan, because there are these activities that exist in the transitional spaces that we mainly see throughout Asia that often go undocumented, but they form the material for the urban proper. And the wilderness, where most of the life thrives and exists because of the wilderness, but due to extractive practices, we're also losing a touch with the wilderness. So we need to understand that since we're talking about the just urban, we entail the existence of an unjust urban, and mostly it's the lesser privileged communities that are at the brink of this injustice.
Well, how do we reach this just urban? First and foremost, a radical democratization of the power and wealth existence in the urban spaces we mentioned, so we can create free housing and utilities for all. The self-expression for all, and also safety in all these urban spaces. Secondly, the the ecological justice so we can create a better balance between the wilderness and our urban forms. However, a just urban has never been created, but by talking and communicating through this abstraction, you can hopefully organize and talk within your house, your neighborhood, your city, and your workspace.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Now we will go to, you can sit now. Thank you so much. We will go to the next presentation, who is joining us online. I'm gonna introduce them. The name of the manifesto, like it is titled as Adapting to Climate Change, A Manifesto for Decolonizing a Just Recovery by Mario Font Martin. Hi, Mario, and thank you so much for joining us tonight, all the way from Puerto Rico. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. First of all, thank you so much. I'm very excited to be sharing this space with such great minds and everything. So I'm very excited to present the work done by my colleagues and I, titled, as you mentioned, Adapting to Climate Change, A Manifesto for Decolonizing a Just Recovery. So in the second slide, we mentioned challenges, threats, and risks. It is important that whenever we're talking about urbanism or trying to create a safe space and just space for everyone, we need to see a context. In Puerto Rico, we focused on social, environmental, and geopolitical contexts. We're going to talk first about the social context. I'm not going to focus on all of them. I'm just going to talk about some of them. First one, we in the island have the highest poverty rate in the United States right now, placing us at 42% of the population living under the poverty level. We're the fourth oldest country in the world, so we're looking also at demographic issues. And the environmental context, very important. We're talking about rising sea levels. Puerto Rico suffering from a lot of rising sea levels. And why did we focus our manifesto on disaster recovery? Well, we're talking about Puerto Rico having, and we're not excluded from the rest of the world, having a series of more intense and frequent events. For example, from drought, hurricanes Irma and Maria in September 2017, a seismic sequence in 2019 to this day, the COVID-19 pandemic, Hurricane Fiona. So what I want to highlight with this is that no matter your race, your economic status, your nationality, climate change has become the common battlefront for human survival. So we need to always have in mind that we don't live in a human-centered bubble. We're not against development. We want to work with the environment to develop, to develop and go forth. Also, the geopolitical aspect of the topic, that we're a colony of the United States since 1898. So we're talking also about how the political and governmental issues impact lives directly. So in the next slide, we focus on three main areas, which is redesigning the framework, which is critical infrastructure, sustainable development, and protection of land with high agricultural value. Why these three areas? Because we need to have consciousness on where we get our energy resources, how we develop our communities and our cities, and how we maintain a safe agricultural level. In Puerto Rico, we import over 80% of what we eat. So it is very important that we focus on how disasters may impact that chain of food industry and whatnot. And in the next slide, we propose from the Global South, what can we propose from our experience? We propose 5 main areas, which is community empowerment. We need to tell communities, we are planning for you. Let's plan together for your particular necessities. Redistribution of power. We need to stop looking at structures, at governmental structures, as a very strict and linear way of planning. We need to break from that little box. Urbanism from a gender perspective, very important. Times are changing, society's evolution. So we need to focus on how we can plan with the new ways of living and whatnot. Transparent governance has to start from communities, has to start from the government. So it needs to be a general sense of transparency in every planning process. And last but not least, insurgent planning. We can't look at insurgency as something bad or something wrong. We need to look at it as a tool to pivot us into, understanding the limitations and the government understanding the necessity of its people. And just to sum up, as planners and future professionals of the archipelago and the rest of the world, we need to strive to protect our land, provide sustainability to communities, and assure the conditions of communities before, during, and after disasters. So that is, in a nutshell, what we want to present with our manifesto focused on disaster recovery.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Of course, we will come back to you and we will discuss more about this thought-provoking manifesto. Now we will go to the third presentation by Maria Sofia Rosso. She is a master's student in architecture at TU Leuven, and she wanted to join us in person, but she couldn't. So now she is through Zoom joining us. Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and the floor is yours.
Hello to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pity to don't be with you in Amsterdam, but I'm happy to join you by Zoom. My group and I have written the Manifesto for the Just City as a part of the course Critical Urban Theory at the Architecture Master of KU Leuven in Brussels. In the presentation, you can see some photos of my fellow students. I can't see the slides, but I think we have Alex, Keta, Louis, Philip, and me. With the next, please. We started the manifesto with a preamble emphasizing the inevitability of urban residency. The fact that cities are continually growing is an undeniable global trend that will persist into the future. And according to the World City Report published in 2022, this growth is carefully documented, underscoring the need for adaptable approaches tailored to specificities of each city, including political, economic, historical, and cultural influences. Devising an overarching plan or a one-size-fits-all solution for a just city becomes a very difficult and superficial task. So at the core of our manifesto, next slides, please, lies the recognition that addressing commonly shared needs on a personal level serves as the catalyst for global transformation. These shared needs are universal basic income, universal health coverage, universal housing, universal transportation and access, multilateral city cooperations, and bodily autonomy. Next, the big question is, how do we unilaterally address the infringement on these rights on a personal level, yet on a global scale? The answer we found is the second segment of our manifesto, which introduces the concept of the cosmopolitical institutes for beings and their representatives. The institutes, at its core, function as an expansive instrument for safeguarding, implementing the rights outlined on a global scale, and offering proactive solutions to enhance the lives of individuals. The Institute operates as an intermediary, amplifying the voices of those who are often unheard. It empowers individuals to streamline bureaucratic processes, ensures political independence, and provides education to support specific projects and infrastructure development. Most crucially, it promotes participation, self-governance, and equality on a level playing field. And the idea of the Institute is that it operates independently from governmental institutions while sharing a common purpose. In the next slide, we have one of the defining characteristic of the Cosmopolitical Institute, that is its open source nature. It serves as a platform where communities can freely exchange and generate ideas and education, embracing knowledge without bias and providing a space for individuals to express their perspectives without the need for justification based on nationality, gender, or circumstancing. And it's fundamental to its ethos. And this approach ensures an evolving process and a diverse range of contributors, promoting transparencies and ongoing communication. And the other characteristic of the Cosmopolitical Institute is the special character. The special character is adaptable to different scales and contexts, reflecting local cultures and histories while encouraging participation. Rural areas on the verge of urbanization are included in the debates and the conception of the Institute, with a qualitative exchange and potentially averting certain urban trends. So, in conclusion, through interactive planning processes, the special character becomes highly contextualized, varying based on traditional techniques, material availability, and property. And the space dynamic features temporary residences, administration facilities, and cultural activities that continually evolve to meet the community's needs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Divya to come to sit with us here so we can have a conversation together. And I want you, Sophia, and also Mario to be online so we can. It would be nice if we can see you both together. Yeah, I mean, let's...
Can I just highlight something?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because the last manifesto, we don't do a competition. So the manifesto is not a competition. But we have small prize, actually, that is we invite the best manifestos to come to our summer school, right? And the last manifesto won, together with a manifesto from Myanmar, which was very political, very strong manifesto as well. And I think it's worth highlighting that they won the best manifesto. And came also Mario was part of our summer school as well. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing this. So going back to the presentations, do you want to add something? Any comments, any thoughts? Or I can start with a quote. Yeah? You yourself, Divya, do you want to reflect on something or do you want to add something?
I don't know.
It's open, yeah. It's working.
So when we started off in TU Delft in the urbanism track, we have an international background. And when we started off discussing within our groups, we realized that our problems were really different. But when we started combining them and talking about it, we started thinking that, okay, every time we talk about the just city, always, but, and then it's always about the inner city and about the spaces that are always designed by urbanists. But we thought as urbanism students, if we start talking about the just urban and the hinterland and all these other factors that connect two different cities, we would have a larger palette. So that was a really strong point that we came up with while discussing our manifesto.
Yeah, interesting. I also maybe forgot to mention this, that Divya and Faike introduced themselves as to-be urbanist. Do you also want to reflect on that a little bit?
Yes, because we think that you work a lot in the real world as a student itself, and sometimes when you call yourself a student, it feels a little wrong, because we're dealing with such we form opinions all along the way when we're studying. So we just thought that would be a better title than using a student. Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Yes, that was a good idea. Caroline, do you want to reflect on any of the manifestos?
Well, maybe starting from what you said, Divya, and kind of expanding on the idea of the just city and looking at the urban. I think by including these landscapes of extraction, you highlight a very important point, that we can not only consider the cute build-up spaces, inner city areas, or maybe the more what people say problematic neighborhoods in cities, but also the kind of extent to which the decisions we take for inner cities really affect these kind of other places. And if you look at the scale of these extractions, they are huge. And so I think that was a very important aspect that you highlighted in your manifesto. Yeah. And it shows sort of, indeed, what you said, to be urbanist is a much better term, because then you can engage in this discussions on an equal base.
Yeah. What I also found interesting, as a common thing among different manifestos while you were presenting, I wrote it down, is that you in the last manifesto, I guess you, Sophia, said that one size fits all doesn't work, of course, and it's like a shallow approaching through the new urban planning and new needs. But at the same time, Mario was also focusing on how the context matters, and I guess these two goes hands in hands. If you consider the context, it means that then you understand what is a specific need for Puerto Rico, then of course what's going on here in it's different from what's going on here in Amsterdam, and it's not more of this Western-centered, everything correct about it approach.
But can I say something
of
about
course.
that? Because I think Mario highlighted very well the fact that they were really talking about their own context, right? And he repeated that many times. But the particularities of Puerto Rico, which is a very unique place in the world, right, are at the same time universal. That's what's amazing, right? So by focusing on his very particular context, he can speak at a universal level about, and we understand what are the struggles of the particular struggles of Puerto Rico, but then we generalize, we see that happening in other places.
Can I add something? Because what I really think is important that Mario highlighted is this these different phases, being prepared, knowing how to act, and then dealing with the consequences, let's say. And kind of reflecting on the starting of this whole manifesto travels, let's say, is that we wanted to do it better after the pandemic. And if you look around, then I don't think we're doing better. So this being prepared when it comes to disaster, it kind of is relevant for other things in life as well. It seems like we don't learn from what happened, not in the far past, but really just 5 minutes ago. So I think keep on highlighting this is really important.
Yeah, thank you. Sophia, is there something that you want to add, or experience you want to share from all this work that you did with your teammates, or how it started with you? What was the very first idea that you were like, yes, we want to write this manifesto?
Yeah, thank you. I think from the beginning we were trying to find a common base, and that's how we started. Finding the key points that are universal, and after finding these key points, these main elements, we tried to understand how we could actually in the real society find a way to make them concrete. And that's how we end up with the cosmopolitical institutes for beings and their representatives. Also, the name is for us is really important because we take in consideration all the beings. We are not talking about humans. We are not talking about animals. We are not just talking about greenery. We are taking all these elements into consideration and
taking in regenerative design.
What, sorry?
Regenerative design, also the focus of Design Institutes for All that we are also researching now.
Yes. So the fact of taking everyone into consideration was a key point for us. And another point is leaving the freedom of this instrument, this institute, to operate by their own, depending on the context, as we said before, because there are issues that are typical from a specific context, and we can't find like a specific solution for everything.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to add, Mario, as a final comment? Then we can go to the questions.
No, basically what everyone's pretty much said. What we were trying also to communicate through this manifesto is that, as Roberto said, we have very particular issues, but our focus was also that, as I mentioned, doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter who you are, climate change is affecting us in every way. If you're a coastal city, most likely sea level is going to affect you. If you're, for example, in the desert, more intense droughts or more intense rains, as we've seen in Libya, the disaster that happened there with the flood. So it's looking at it from the perspective of our country or our cities, but how can we replicate? Because the most important part is replicating what we learn from our spaces and placing it in other places around the world.
Yeah, thank you so much for your input. I guess that's a good time to go to the questions. So once again, I'm going to repeat like the Menti code, which is 16889812. If you're watching us online, of course, you can go to menti.com and insert this code. And once again, 16889812. And your question will be directed to me. If you want to ask from the speakers, presenters, or just a general question, feel free to do so. And for the people in the studio, if you have a question, just raise your hand. This is the time. Was it all clear? This clear? And also there's going to be like a round of Q&A at the end. So let's be hopeful that you have saved this for the...
Can I say something while we wait for the questions? Because they are all, like I see the engines running. They're really thinking about very good questions. But I want to acknowledge the role of Faranak Miraftab, because she is really one of the big inspirations. For those who don't know, Faranak Miraftab is an Iranian scholar working in the United States for decades now. And she is the main proponent of this idea of insurgent planning, right? And she contributed mainly with many ideas, but with two I would like to highlight. One is the idea of decolonizing our minds, because we are colonized both by the past and by the current system, capitalism, that we have. So it's easy to imagine a world without animals, but it's not easy to imagine a world without capitalism. And the other idea that she inspires us is this idea of hope as a everyday practice. So you practice hope to animate you and to set you on the path to promote change. If you don't have hope, you don't promote change. So that's the core of the, right?
Yes, and maybe adding one thing, it's the importance of imagination. and daring to imagine. And I think when you saw the slide of the Cosmopolitical Institute, for me that is a beautiful example of what design thinkers like all of you can do and do really good, is use your imagination to open our minds and indeed show what hope can be. So I think that's also an important contribution she made.
Yeah, I guess we also had a quote from her. I'm not sure if we can find it because it was at the very beginning, but if later it comes up, we can also show it. But yeah, that's exactly like the core of her discussions. And also in this new volume of volume 3, she has an interesting manifesto about like the whole movement that's going on currently in Iran, women, life, freedom, and how she discusses that the freedom of women is actually the freedom of all humankind. It's not just about women. And yeah, I would highly recommend that you read this, and then thank you so much for your presentation. I guess I didn't see any questions. So maybe for the last part, we can have some questions. There is one question. Maybe we can have it quickly.
Thank you so much for preparing this marvelous work. And it's also very important that people from different parts of the world, like, we're suffering from the same thing. Even we don't, we're walking in the cities, taking milk rice is coming from somewhere else, we don't know. And I think it's rather than a comment than a question, but I would like to thank you for a lot that makes us think about where our things are coming from and what is the social cost for us that we're all paying for it. Sometimes time can be a very important dimension that we forget about that. And there we see how degradation is happening actually in our cities, and therefore, like, bringing it forward and being very statemental about it, I think it's the very basic things that we should have in the urbanism studies at all, because it is a social practice and we're here to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was a comment, not question, but still, thank you so much. Yeah, I asked it, I know. Thank you so much. So you can go back to your seat, please. Another round of applause to all the presenters for interesting manifestos. And let's continue this journey with another presenter here to present the manifesto of I Am Because We Are. Such a cool title. And her name is Tarini Sharma. Another round of applause for Tarini. She is a master's student of resource efficiency in architecture and planning at the Hoffen City University. Thank you so much for coming this long way to join us here in Amsterdam. And the floor is yours. You can start.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My title of the manifesto is I Am Because We Are. And I would like to begin also by repeating exactly what we were talking about before, how hope is such an important tool for imagination, and it should be like a practice, an everyday practice. It was a wonderful exercise creating this manifesto. We were 4 ladies from all over the world, Gabriela, Nassim, Ghazal, and myself. And it was a really good experience just talking over coffee in the beginning about different problems that all of us face in our cities, and then kind of how we all lived together in the same city away from these, and how new problems emerged. But rather than focusing on the problems, to like really zoom out and talk about it at a global scale, at some values that what could be condensed down to for a utopia or for an ideal city. So we came up with a vision of a city and of a people where they are one and the same, where my well-being is like very intricately woven into your well-being, and I am a part of a whole, but I am not whole without the other. So our just city is a renaissance of a city where this interconnectivity is sort of what brings us to imagine about a common future that has consequences, real-life consequences in the present. And while these futures can be really diverse and everybody can have their own perspective, it really boils down to a few core values. So we came up with these core values saying that our city is inclusive, where it's not an us versus them situation. We are a beautifully diverse we. And this diversity is approached with curiosity and is honored. Our city is resilient and stands prepared in face of all the changes posed by changing climate and also some internal conflicts. And we try to overcome this with, of course, our scientific knowledge and our potential to learn from past failures. Our city is circular, where the innate appreciation of our natural heritage is what drives us to protect it and makes us accountable for our impact on the environment. Our city is equitable, where we acknowledge our differences, enhance our strengths, and minimize our weaknesses, working together for the advancement of the community. And finally, our city is just, where just is not just an expression of quality, but it's something that we practice in our everyday lives. So what should we do in order to achieve or in order to integrate these goals into like real life practices? Boils down to a few changes in policy that I won't go through everything, but something like a universal basic income, access to sustainable and just infrastructure, and of course to hold the state accountable for its actions. Changes in infrastructure to upgrade existing buildings and for new infrastructure to design for disassembly, amongst others. And finally, leading a more circular lifestyle where waste is a design flaw and we can integrate this into everyday practice. So, of course, this is not something that can be achieved overnight, but it's a goal that we're continuously working towards, with the base idea of cooperating instead of competing with these different actors. And therefore, we call for action for different parts of the society that have a very unique role to play. For example, there are representatives of the society. We call on them to take conscious action to be transparent and accountable. For producers and manufacturers to minimize their environmental impacts and reinforce strong workplace ethics. For architects and planners to understand what the people actually need and empathize with their resistance to change as well, but encourage participation in design processes. And finally, for you and I, for everybody in this room and beyond, to speak up, to question and criticize and have an opinion and also constantly change that opinion to evolve into something that we are aiming for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You can come here and join us while we are going to the next presentation by Diodone Elohim, who is joining us all the way from South Africa. Hi, Diodone, and thank you so much for joining us. He's going to present the manifesto, which is titled The Walkable City. We still don't have your video, but I guess soon we will have, and then you can start. But if you hear us, right?
Yes, I can hear you. Hope you can hear me.
Okay.
Yes.
And have you opened your video? Okay, perfect. I guess we have you now.
Yes, it is open.
Yeah, I guess it's not the best internet connection, but if it works better with the video off, you can start just presenting. I guess we lost you.
Let's try that.
Okay, then you can start.
As long as you can hear me and we can go through the slides.
Yes,
okay,
we can hear you and we can go through this
So
slide.
I'll be sharing with you a little bit of delay, but I'll just start. So I'll be sharing with you a product of lived experience of 3 people from different cities, but with similar dysfunctions. Mauricio Barriga from Ecuador, based in Germany. Teodora Kirunda from South Africa, based in Pretoria. And myself, Diodone Elohim from Angola, based in Cape Town. So, into the next slide. The walkable city is a problem problem solution text that invites us all to promote walkability.
We cannot hear you anymore. My suggestion is to change your internet connection if it's possible.
More things that come into play. Focus on two.
Yeah, I guess this is not going to work, to be honest. Maybe we can wait a little bit, and I hope that you can switch the internet, and maybe it's going to be better.
Yes.
And yeah, if you hear me, you can just take your time to try out other internet sources while we're continuing conversation around the manifesto that Tarini gave us. Yes, we can hear you, but I guess it's like not working in the best way. Do you think it's an idea to just change the internet?
Okay, I can hear you perfectly. Okay, let me try that out.
Yeah, it just goes out, so that's why we cannot hear you. Yeah, I would suggest to continue with the conversation, and we can move the Zoom screen from the TV behind us. So let's go back to the manifesto that you presented, I Am Because We Are, which I did really love the visualizations of that manifesto, by the way, like the stirs that it was going through and how you wanted to get through the just. I would not continue. Do you want to add something, or Juliana? It's been a while. You also haven't talked.
Yeah, actually, I have a question. Could you explain where it's coming from? The I am because you are.
It's a African philosophy. I think it's called Ubuntu, and I think I was really inspired by it, and we talked about it because, yeah, just like I said, talking over coffee, it was super interesting. To just not be so individualistic. Even though we come from such different parts of the world, and it feels like, yeah, we're like super different people. I guess what was really interesting was that I will not be super happy if you are not. Or success or well-being is basically, it cannot be separate. So this was the idea behind it.
Thank you. I asked the question because in my manifesto I also mentioned this African philosophy, I am because you are, and I mention it in the context of solidarity, because here in the Western world and the Western urbanism we talk about solidarity, but I see a lot of connections to this philosophy.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a famous philosophy. And you also had a bit of background in philosophy. We were talking during
I wish.
dinner. Or at least you're looking for
next turn.
Yeah, nice.
Your next PhD.
Yeah. Do you want to add anything, Roberto or Caroline? Or I also want to invite Rudolf to join our conversation while I guess we have Diodone back. Can you hear us? I guess.
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. The internet connection is the best now.
I think it's better now.
Yes, it's so good. So let's go back to your presentation, the walkable city. You can start over. A bit quick, please.
Yes. So, as I said at the beginning, I'll be sharing products of lived experience of 3 different people from 3 different cities, but with similar dysfunctions, which is Ecuador, Mauricio Barriga, which is based in Germany, Theodora Kirunda from South Africa, based in Pretoria, and myself, Diodone Elohim from Angola, based in Cape Town. And the walkable city, on the next slide, we have the walkable city is a problem solution text that invites us all to promote walkability through dialogue. And there's definitely more things to it that come into play for just transition. But we here focus in 2 low-hanging fruits, which are walkability, which speaks of access in various aspects, and dialogue, which speaks of multi-level interactions. So, and I would like to thank as well the Center for the Just City and Behoud de Zwijger for this initiative, because these conversations are happening everywhere and in different formats. We see here photo collages of the over the same theme, in which we find that communication is key. So in the next slide, we are looking at how contemporary spatial planning has completely disregarded the importance of NMTs and still gives priority to vehicles, having larger streets and highways resulting in more cars, pollution and traffic, and longer commuting distances, making walking less appealing and safe. And these decisions have been made in the high places, not by the people. So now as pedestrians and cyclists, we must run for our lives in every single intersection. And why? Because our cities, especially in the global south, are nothing but experimental grounds for modernist utopias. So we end up only being able to walk in fancy touristic areas. There's no street activations, only cars and blank walls. And walking long distances is never for fitness, but because people can't afford anything else. And with regards to safety, can a woman even walk alone at night? So we have the answers for those questions. And so in terms of walkability, in the next slide, we today would like you to imagine a different future where everyone is able to walk, but living in sustainable living cities recreated by the inclusion of citizens in decision-making processes, because the traditional has only brought insecurity, accidents, less equality, death, and the collapse of our food and our systems. So we're here lobbying for 3 tangible applications, which are the decentralization of spaces and governance with self-sustaining urban centers instead of silos, car-free areas with streets fully pedestrianized, and as well multifunctionality of spaces to live, work, and socialize. Next slide, please. So on multi-sectoral dialogue, we believe that authorities and other key players have to change their mindsets and advocate for new design, policy, and economic approaches. And we, as well as individuals and collectives, must also speak and listen actively, because nothing will happen without communities' mobilization. And a clear example of that is the apartheid spatial inequality, which is still lived in South Africa, where luxurious neighborhoods are sheltered with green buffer zones, rail lines, and vacant land from the horrors of zinc forests or informal settlements, so that minorities can sleep peacefully, per se. But we believe that social cultural edges can be the answer. Bridges, parks, community halls, food, music, and marketplaces can bring people and ideals together. But are we even willing to have these conversations, though? So in the next slide, to conclude, we believe as well that we have lost the power to co-create our cities, and we must claim it back. We do not want a future built on the same mistakes of the past, and we can work together to build the cities that we deserve. And even if not for ourselves, at least for our children, a future based on dialogue, exchange, and consensus, and not imposed, so that we can transform core cities from machines for living to people-driven, just, and equitable cities. And we'd like to leave you as well with 2 awesome book recommendations, From What If to What If, From What Is to What If, by Robin Hopkins, and Walkable City by Jeff Speck, who helped us a lot, and simple 5 action steps for all social and professional levels. First, on the last slide, use alternative transportation methods so we can make ourselves visible. Numbers actually count. Second, step outside, speak to your neighbors and local business owners about safety and access. Third, map the areas where people don't feel safe and do something about it. Fourth, organize municipal committees that engage with city officials. And lastly, collaborate with universities, as we are doing right now, NGOs and other stakeholders, to look for support, sharpen ideas, and scale up our impact. And I hope you took a picture of this. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what we call the walkable city. Obrigado.
Thank you so much.
They can download the book and read it.
Yes, because it was published just today, right? In the morning.
It was published today and it's free, so you can download it for free.
Exactly. I guess there is a question. Please save your question. No, it's not a time. Sorry. You have to save it until it's the time for...
It's not a question, it's a comment.
You can...
will be print-on-demand Wednesday.
Okay. That was a good comment. Thank you. So let's continue our conversation with these two last presentation. If you have any thoughts that you want to share, and I want to invite Rudolf to join us again, and because you haven't talked in a very long time. So if you want to share any thoughts with us, please feel free to do so.
Yes, I would love to. It's a very interesting combination of manifestos that we've now seen. I was very heartened to hear the title of I Am Because We Are, and it piqued my interest because it did sound like the concept of Ubuntu. And I think whereas that's a manifesto rooted in hope, Dieudonné's Walkable City is a nice example of an issue-driven manifesto, something that is very pragmatic. And I think that striking that balance between hope and pragmatism is really the place where we want to be working as people that concern ourselves with urban issues. Something that also came to the fore for me in the first manifesto was the idea of cooperation versus competition. It's an idea that really resonates with me, particularly in a context where the formal and the informal is often seen as being at odds with each other. And I think that idea of cooperating between those two sectors is really something that will create a vehicle to try and strive for, let's call it an anti-capitalist society, or a society where the ills of capitalism is not so determining to urban futures.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask a very broad question to all you. Based on all of these manifestos that we heard, from the beginning, what do you think are the alternative urban future that we can imagine? And you cannot give cliche answers to this cliche question.
I think what was said before about the students, I've been thinking about this the whole session. I think that's what gives me hope, and to me this is like the future of urbanism. These young people here, that they presented to us in these manifestos ideas that are at the very high level of critical urban theory. I was just picking up the ideas and connecting to these scholars that I know, and they're all there, but they put all together, and they're so young, so I do agree that, I think it's nice to be a student, honestly. I wish I could go back and do all over again, maybe not engineering. But I do acknowledge that what you produced is very powerful, and I think to me this is what I can imagine and hope for the future of cities, that these people will do so much better.
I want to add something to that, because I think both your manifesto, which was really powerful with wonderful visuals, I have to say, but the manifesto by Dieudonné is really a design manifesto. He is really something that we would see at TU Delft, for example. It has this future-oriented and very practical-oriented kind of solutions and proposals. So what I really liked about Dieudonné's manifesto is it's full of proposals. Map the unsafe places and do something about it. It's full of very feasible proposals as well. So I think that's very powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Like the last slide, it was like this kind of recommendation. This one can be already shared with the municipality of Cape Town, I guess. You can already make some ideas about it. But thank you so much, Tarini and Dieudonné. If there is some final thoughts that you want to share, please do so.
I think these were both really, all of the manifestos are pretty amazing. And it was a really fun exercise overall to do this.
Cool. And you, Diodone, is anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, I encourage everyone to take the time to go through all the manifestos, because I went through the ones that have been presented today, and so it's really worth the time. Yeah, thank you very much.
Good. Thank you so much. I guess we can give another round of applause, so you can go back to your seat as well. Thank you so much. As we ran a little bit over time, I will open the floor again for a question, but only one question if you have. And maybe if you're asking an online question, please give us a bit of context, because I have a question here which says, is there any actual case study running in any city? I mean, hello. I don't know from who we received this question, but I would love to have more context if you're having an online question. If not, we can have like a very quick question in the room. And if you're all okay, we can continue, I guess, with our wrap-up dialogue, I would say. Time flies, and it's, I guess, 9:30. So we have short time to reflect on the discussion that we have. How do you see the change in where we are as a society now compared to when you first published the manifesto, like in 2021? I know somehow you answered in a way that, okay, it's not like more of learning or something that, yeah, you learned from it, but how do you see the change going through? And I would also love to include Rudolf in our conversation. So any of you who wants to start?
Maybe I'm not going to answer the question, maybe I am, but it links back to your former question about what is this just city, how do you envisage it? And maybe it's a place where we, like what Dieudonné mentioned as well, where we can meet each other and following this idea or this philosophy of Ubuntu, but where we meet each other, where we see each other for who we are as people, not for how we are different. And I think that kind of is something I really value in the manifesto exercise, that in the breakout rooms, people, or when you're writing the manifesto, you talk to people who we would say everybody's different and everybody's from different backgrounds and so on, but you start to see each other for who you are, not for how different you are. And I think sort of maybe that is one of the important changes that this manifesto exercise can also support, let's say.
Thank you. If no one wants to add to that, I would also continue by asking, how do you think this thing, like a manifesto for the just city that is already expanding a lot, can be a movement beyond just an educational institution, which is already a lot of things going on, like these things happening among a lot of different countries and universities, but how it can be a movement beyond just an institutional practice?
I would love to answer that question, and also by I think recognizing something which has not been universally recognized before, and that is the fact Carolyn mentioned earlier that we've learned lessons from the pandemic, but we've also forgotten a lot. And for us in the Global South, we've seen how emergency remote teaching, online activities really created new decentralized communities around particular issues. And as those opportunities to participate in discussions happening in the North, if you want to call it that, have opened, they've also started closing. And the manifesto exercise is an exception to that. And I really want to commend that this online community has remained post-pandemic. And I think that's perhaps, Fazia, part of the answer to your question, is that the creation of persistent online communities of interest, of practice around urban issues is perhaps beginning to build the legacy of this exercise.
Thank you. Do you want to add to that?
Well, I agree with Rudolf, and I think for me, creating this global community of people. So the value and the power for me is putting everybody together, and that we are walking together. Actually, it doesn't matter so much what we are doing, but we are walking together and thinking together. And I think it's very, very powerful when you put people from all over the world together to just discuss. I have to say we haven't done a very good job technically. Because we use the Zoom things and never works and it's a mess. But we are trying to make it better so that people feel that they can talk to each other more during these workshops. By the way, the next workshop is about to begin, right? And the 9th of October is the first one. Oh, people are really, they're very good.
Fast.
And we are trying to do it a little bit better in the sense that the most important part is when people start talking after the lecture and they start talking to each other. That's really powerful.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess is there a deadline for registering for the workshop?
Until the first day of the workshop.
It's open and people can register. So nice. So again, another open call for the workshop that you can register online and you can join all the 4 sessions. So with what you just said, next question would be like, what is the next steps that you're going to follow?
I think we are going to continue to work on the Center for the Just City and strengthening it and making it more of a inclusive community. We want to invite people to join us, to be partners, to give ideas, to do things, to walk together. That's the idea.
Ah, that was so beautiful. Nice. To work together. Yeah, that was a nice ending point. So will there be like a volume 4 that we will have like a book launch again next year here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. So
is this an invitation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Soft invitation, kind of. Thank you so much, everyone. You people here with us and students, presenters, and manifesto contributors from all of these 63 countries. I don't know how many people were watching us online, but thank you to you all. And a special thank you to Roberto, Caroline, Juliana, and Rudolph, and also other online presenters. So a big round of applause to everyone. Thank you so much. Tonight we spoke about the concept of Just City, and we took a really deep dive from various perspectives. We talked about interconnectivity, we talked about contextualization, but like not only geographical contextualization, but also environmental contextualization and social contextualization, which all matters. And I hope that can be a good food for thought for all of you people who were watching us online. And then you can watch back the program. It was recorded, so you can go to dezwijger.nl/DCFA and you can have access to all the previous programs that we have made at Designing Cities for All team. And one more thing is that we are not done here with DCFA, and we will have 2 more programs about the current fellowship that we are having with Yuris Leshene and Lucia Kula, our fellows. And the next program, which is titled Demands and Desires, will be in 3 weeks. So if you like, you can register and join us either online or in person on October 16th, Monday. And the third one will be in November 20th, also on Monday. And it is titled Borders versus Bodies. So it's going to be such a cool topic. So make sure that you will register. And you can become also a friend of Podcast de Zwijger. All the programs that we make are free of charge. So if you feel that you like, you can also donate. And that was it. Thank you so much for watching us and have a good evening.
Thank you.